Hi, we are Mamuna and Nagina from TheMinBlog. TheMinBlog is an Instagram and Twitter platform for women just to instill meaning in their lives as well as inspire and nurture them with inspiration. This is our very first podcast, pod chat, if you like. Um, Please do like us on our Instagram and Twitter. We are asking some big questions today with our discussion on motherhood, modernity, and the middle way. So do get involved.
Indeed, we are. So, Motherhood, Modernity, and the Middle Way. It's a very charged title, and that's how we like it at the TheMinBlog. So, I think the kind of discussions we've had, Nagina, as two friends, have been on motherhood. We're both mothers, and we both happen to be working mothers at the moment, and we have the TheMinBlog and lots of things going on in our lives. And we often find ourselves just having these discussions about, just everyday trials and everyday struggles and everyday, miracles that happen. And we kind of thought that actually there's probably women who are having these discussions with similar ideas and struggles and experiences. And why not put it onto a podcast so that we can expand the discussion in the spirit of the TheMinBlog. So today's question, which around motherhood, modernity, and the middle way, comes around the kind of questions that actually Western societies have been grappling with for a long time. So, asking questions like, can women have it all? Do women have to make a choice between a career and a family? And effectively, I guess it all comes from the evolving roles of gender. And like I said, as Western communities have been discussing these for decades, these questions for decades, ever since women have come into the workforce. I think, communities such as ours, migrant communities, second generation migrant communities in the UK who are now working and who are also mothers are having these discussions once again. But I think they're more complex and they're more layered because of the extra cultures and the extra beliefs. And that's a great thing. I think there's a whole new discussion and a whole new generation to take on these discussions. And globalization as well means that we have a global culture, and these questions are now being asked in different contexts all over the world. And so just starting with today's podcast and the question we want to get to is, motherhood and what it means and how we balance it against everything else, or in harmony with everything else. So, Nagina, just bouncing off a question straight to you.
Sure.
What is motherhood to you?
Well, ultimately, it's a life-changing experience, and you're not the same woman that you were before motherhood. It's sacred. It's a spiritual journey as much as a physical and emotional one. And so the questions that you ask as a mother are always intense and very broad. I mean, to be a mother implies a continuing presence, and I feel blessed that I will always be that critical figure in a young person's life. It's with a mother's hands, eyes, body, voice that we actually associate our primal sensations and our earliest social experience. So the role is one of great depth and importance, but equally, I reflect upon the fact that I'm an individual before God and before myself, and that I have my own dreams and ambitions and other relationships
Absolutely.
too. And that all needs to work in equilibrium for me. I mean, a woman's status as childbearer and mother has been made into a major fact of her life. And once she steps into this role, I feel it's almost the most pivotal and most important role from all the other roles that she has. Some women are happy letting that role be the ultimate definer, and others choose to be defined as other things, for their career, for example. So
Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned a really important word then again. It just caught my ear: equilibrium, and that's just a lovely word in terms of phonetics as well. Equilibrium. When we talk about equilibrium, we mean balance, and that's really the key to success in life. And we've talked about it at great length between ourselves, just as friends. Work, family, relationships, friendships, social life, and what about personal time? Time for a book or a massage or a breakaway. is it impossible to have everything at once, or are we just heading towards self-destruction? What are your thoughts?
Such a big question. I mean, on a relative basis, I do think it's possible. And a lot of women have spoken openly and honestly about this, particularly Indira Nooyi, who is CEO of PepsiCo, and Anne-Marie Slaughter in her amazing TED speech. But there are, I feel, along the way, there are sacrifices that you have to make in order to have it all. And you have to accept the collateral damage along the way as well as you try to work out that so-called balance. But I feel the most important thing is that you need a strong support network to enable you to do everything that you want. And without that, it would be almost impossible to achieve that equilibrium. I mean, that supportive husband, partner, who strives to be your equal and match you in everything that you do for your child, a supportive mother or mother-in-law. I mean, I'm lucky in that respect because I do literally have a village that's helping to bring up and nurture my son. And in regards to then, pursuing my dreams, if you are willing to make all of the trade-offs, then you can have it all. And whatever it is that, you're sacrificing, just make sure that it's not one of the main things, like your relationship with your family or your health. And Dr. Ghazala Qadri, when she delivered her lecture at the Al Hadaya camp this year on the Woman's Balancing Act, she said that, if that happened, if, you felt that your health was, you were struggling, or, your relationship with your spouse was suffering, then it was time to reevaluate your priorities. I mean, I'm lucky to be working in an educational institution that upholds the rights of working mothers and understands that, actually my child is my main priority. So...
And I think that's just an echo of all mothers. Your child is your priority. That there's no if and buts about it. And I think everything else comes second to that. Your career and other hobbies, interests, or whatever it is that you might be interested in. And that question, can women have it all? It reminds me of something. Former Prime Minister Tony Blair, his wife Cherie Blair, she was quite a well established barrister, and I remember she said, I think it was that women can have it all, but not all at once. And there's just so many ways to think about this question. But I mean, I feel like the modern world tells us, and this is where the sort of pressure to have it all comes from. It's this kind of messaging that we get, that we need to be on the go. You need to be working or producing something or making money or at the gym or just doing something all the time. There's not, and this can cause anxiety. We don't live in a world where it says just go to the park with your kids and just reflect or breathe or have a think. That's just not valued. I mean, I don't know if you feel the same, but that's definitely exasperated when you're a mum, and it's almost like you're being told that that isn't enough. And I've had friends who've said that to me. I mean, I don't know if I'm making sense, or if you're nodding your head saying exactly what I'm talking
actually
about.
am, and I think every mother out there can relate to this. I think when we worry like that, though, we miss the essence of motherhood and life in
life,
general.
yeah.
Absolutely. But then it's natural, isn't it, to question ourselves, particularly as mothers. We almost become quite OCD about it. Are we ever doing enough? And actually, how do we measure enough or having it all? Like I said, some women, they prefer, for them, having it all is being with their children at home, nurturing their minds, and actually to them that is enough. Whereas others, tend to, I mean, I was reading Black Milk by Elif Shafak, and she talks about her struggles, the writer within her, the artist, her creative, abilities, for example, suffering during motherhood. But society itself is promoting, isn't it, a whole new structure of motherhood and the mother as a construction. And I think it's difficult at times to live up to the expectation, And I mean, I was taking a drive with Yusuf the other day, and after about 5 minutes, I just started panicking, thinking I haven't spoken to him. But then when I looked at him, he was gazing out of the window, enjoying the images of nature, passing by his window, and I thought, it's okay, because this is my particular narrative, and this is my construction. I'm okay. I can see that he's perfectly happy. And you know, silent periods are okay, and I was telling myself this and reassuring myself that, you know, it's okay, it's fine. And I think there isn't a perfect mother,
Yeah.
only a perfect facade at times. And actually, in a way, it's a relief to hear that, you know, you do your best, and this is your narrative as a mother.
Absolutely, and I think it's that kind of saying to women that you have to be perfect or you have to be these super women. That kind of almost, you know, it's pushing people off the edge, you know, in some ways. And I was listening recently to a lecture. It was just something on YouTube. It was a discussion happening at the World Economic Forum, and I think the question at the debate was, can women have it all? And there was a renowned academic there, Hamza Yusuf Hansen. And everyone charged him with important points about, you know, making sure that women are in the workforce because it benefits society and it benefits the economy, and you know, everyone sort of just rushed to sort of, you know, kind of say that was the right thing to do. And Hamza Yusuf Hansen said, you know, something that just really made me stop in my tracks. He said, you know, let's not denigrate the work of mothers. And I thought, you know, that's so true. You know, sometimes, you know, and I mentioned before, I have friends who said, I'm a mum, I'm at home with the baby all day, and I have a hard time saying to myself, this is enough, because society keeps telling me it isn't. And, you know, that's also dangerous, because making that choice of saying if you wanted to pause your career or you wanted to stop your career and you just wanted to focus on baby and raising your children, that is, you know, the bravest, the most difficult, the bravest job, the most difficult job, and it's very scary, and yet women are being told even that's not enough. So it's, you know, that there's no winning on either side.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't think there's a uniform set of motherhood policies for any one woman to follow. You know, we do what's best for ourselves and our own journeys. And I think for any mother to succeed, you know, she will need her own downtime and personal well-being time. And that's, you know, defined in her own way as well. Um, as a working woman, though, I must say that, you know, I am particularly envious at times of mothers who are able to be with their children in the home and be that continuing presence. And I think it's wonderful, particularly as the research and evidence is clear regarding attachment and the impact it can have on a child's development between the ages of 0 to 3. But ultimately, as well, I think the government still has a long way to go in meeting the needs of mothers. I don't know whether you agree there,
Absolutely, absolutely.
And
I think, you know, we have, you know, obviously with more women in powers of position in terms of business and CEOs. I think that helps. But we certainly still have a long way to go. I think even the most progressive societies, you know, have still a long way to go to really make, you know, allow the flexibility for mothers. And I'm lucky to be in a job where that flexibility is there. But as a society, you know, I think, you know, we can always do more, because I think a happy family means a happy society, a more productive society, and essentially will benefit the economy if that's really what's just, you know, important to governments.
I think we as well, Mamuna, I think we underestimate just, you know, the socially weighted choices one mother will face, you know, in her journey. And I think what ultimately meshes us together as mothers is that whether you are working or not, you know, I think everyone's unanimous in that the physical and psychic weight of responsibility on a woman with children is by far the heaviest of social burdens, and that's something that we all have to meet and figure out.
Absolutely, and let's not forget, you know, that it's a job of courage and sacrifice and selflessness. You can't just leave it when you're not happy, or you know, there'll be days when nobody says thank you, and it goes back to what you said about it being spiritual. I think there is something really sacred about the role.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think that, going back to what Hamza Yusuf Hansen said, is not to denigrate that role, you know, not to sneer it, not to look down at it, and actually to celebrate it and create a society where, you know, it's something that's really respected. It's just as respected as somebody who goes out to work for it, for instance. But at the same time, I also, you know, I feel like I have to also give this message as part of, you know, the TheMinBlog, is that even if you make that choice to be a mum who stays at home and you know, dedicates her life to her family, which is, you know, such a noble thing to do, it doesn't also mean that you have to give up on yourself or your dreams or your ambitions. And actually, you might have an interest or a hobby or something that you enjoy doing that you can still pursue. I mean, we have social media now, which means that anything's possible in terms of creativity and business and networking. And as we navigate ourselves through, these different roles and this world that has so many expectations of us, I think we still need to have the gratitude that we live in a time where the opportunities available to women are so much better than they've ever probably been in history.
Absolutely.
And it's just important that we also, as mothers, take care of ourselves, and whatever our dreams and ambitions are, we don't just trade off with them completely. So it comes back to just finding equilibrium and the balance and the middle way. And I think that's probably a good place to conclude today's podcast.
Absolutely.
Unless you had any other thoughts, Nagina.
No, I'd just like to add, I think that, we've got to remember that the notion of motherhood in general is still a relatively unexplored area for most women and societies. And, even just trying to traverse material and find things on, historical and universal significance of mothers is very difficult. I couldn't find anything. And I think we all define it in our own ways. As a new generational wave occurs, new questions are asked about motherhood and, bringing up children, and new strategies are sought. I mean, I'm currently reading Of Woman Born by Adrienne Rich, and in her book, she triumphantly explores the pleasure and pains of motherhood. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's going to be a continuing dialogue, to be honest. I feel you and I, Mamuna, we never exhaust this topic in general. And I don't think we ever will, because like I said, the dialogue itself is ever changing. And that's why we're bringing it here onto our podcast. We're hoping that more people could join the conversation, either comment on TheMinBlog on Twitter, on Instagram, or let us know that if you'd like to participate in our next conversation and discussion. We are all about sharing experiences, learning from each other, and just stopping and saying, me too. I feel the same, and we're all on this journey together. And we hope you enjoyed our first podcast. We would love to hear your feedback, and we'll be bringing you another podcast in the not too distant future. And I think we're going to be discussing why beauty is not enough. Is that right, Mamuna?
That is indeed, and that's my child crying.
On that note. On that note, thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it.
We will be discussing the issue of beauty. Yeah. Thank you so much, everybody.